ask everybody to be courteous and try to get to the points as quickly as we can, so we can hopefully get through all of these 10 items here. So Ms. Carlson, do you want to kick this off with maybe an overview of what's in our budget and exactly what we're trying to accomplish here tonight?
Absolutely. Thank you. And good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm excited to kick off this joint CRA workshop and continue the momentum we're building together. Some of you have already seen a lot of what's in this presentation, but just for recap purposes, as we go through these proposals, I'm going to show them on the screen. So Matt's going to get that pulled up. And we'll briefly recap what is in each CRA district, along with the proposals within this package together. Given the time constraints, we do only have roughly 2 hours together. So we have about 8 minutes we can spend on each proposal. So if we find that it requires a deeper conversation, I would recommend tabling it, and then we can talk about it in further detail at the June 6th advisory. And then of course we can bring that recommendation to the CRA board thereafter. So we'll go ahead and get the presentation pulled up. Like I said, this is going to look very familiar if you were here for the CRA advisory meeting that I think I showed this on May 24th. So we'll go next slide. So just to recap what's in each CRA, and the Wi-Fi here is a little slow, so we may be lagging just a little bit. But in the Main Street District, total budget we have in that allocation was 1.69 million. Currently to date, we're about 1.62, so most of that budget is available. Next slide. In the Southside CRA District, we have a little over $500,000 in there. This has not been updated since our last last advisory meeting, but it's 460,000. I will say, after I've done a deep dive into all of our facade grants in the South Side, that account is almost depleted. We have about $10,000 left in that account, and I have 6 applications to present at our next advisory. So we will need to discuss how we want to proceed with that. Next slide. In the Airport District, we have essentially everything that was allocated in there, $255,000, and there's $255,000 still remaining in that account. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to kick off with the Phase Park Initiative. And so we'll start with Donaldson Park. Next slide. A lot of people, yourselves included, have seen the updated renderings from Cool and Cobb that include the proposed pickleball courts, the new fitness center, the splash pad, the new restrooms, and there is a new community center that they finished up on the latest renderings. Next slide. So here's a full comprehensive plan of what that could potentially look like. Again, this is just a concept plan, and there has been a very lengthy discussion about the pickleball courts and the splash pad. So I believe that has been something that's been in conversation for quite some time. The new community center is a terrific add to this rendering. And then, but we can change these things as you see fit, as you're out talking to the community. I know there's been a lot of discussion about potentially, is all of that fitness equipment needed? Could we replace that with potentially a skate park? Do we want to use half of that and do a tennis court on the other side, since we're getting rid of the tennis courts with the pickleball courts? Is the putt-putt golf needed, or do we want more stationary games like you see down on the circle, whether that be cornhole or table tennis or things like that? We can certainly change this up however you see fit, and then updated playground equipment along with the phased and community center, which would be a much larger project down the line. Next slide. This is an overview of the pickleball courts. That is an 8-court pickleball under cover. And of course, the much more expanded fitness area there on the outside of that towards the boat ramp area. Next slide. And the splash pad. which I know a lot of families are very, very excited about. So that would be a more interactive playground area for children with different elements in there that, you know, of course, the water, but there's also other elements we can add in there. Currently budgeted is $350,000 for that splash pad and $350,000 for the pickleball courts. Next slide. This is also something, if we're going to move forward with the pickleball courts, this is the new updated bathrooms that move the restrooms closer to that pickleball area, replacing what is currently there, demoing the existing bathrooms. Next slide. This, of course, would be a beautiful addition to an updated community center here in downtown Avon Park. I believe this room we're sitting in right now is the only community center available to Avon Park. And so this would put us right on a lake with the availability to do, we could do some type of business incubator in there, but of course you could do events. There's a lot of multi-use that we could do with something like this, obviously down the line once we decide what that would look like and how much that would cost. Next slide. Now, again, don't get too caught up in the actual rendering. Again, we can change that, other concepts, and we're going to talk through other parks other than just Donaldson Park, but I know that's something that gets people really excited. Like Walnut Park, which is proposed here on your phase park initiative B4. We could do, right now they're redoing the basketball courts there at Walnut Park. There is space there to do a pump track, which is very popular with bicycle enthusiasts, which is basically a concrete track that you ride your bike around. So we had someone present that to us at City Hall, and it's a very cool concept, and the cost of that is fairly minimal. Of course, you could do, we could include a skate park somewhere, soccer, volleyball, additional basketball courts. I know that's been mentioned several times. Covered playground equipment. I know parents are very enthusiastic about having, it gets very hot in Florida summers, and having those playground equipment covered, volleyball, you know, thinking through pickleball courts. I'm not too familiar with pickleball courts, but could the nets be removed and that be used for other things like derby, rollerblading, or an amphitheater? Could we have a stage there and you could do event nights, yoga, things like that? Could we have that be a multi-use facility under cover? So just thinking through that. Next slide. 2-lane south side, we've talked a lot about a pier. Of course, if you go down to Sebring Park, the city of Sebring Park down there, they have the pier, the fishing pier, they have the seawall, and they have an open beach area. We can mimic what that looks like a little bit in 2-lane. I know they have also discussed a community garden down in that area, but any of these park concepts can be, they're interchangeable with the park. So it's not necessarily, we're just talking about Donaldson Park. These are things that we need to start thinking about in our other parks as well. Next slide. Okay, do we want to, and again, I don't want to take too much time. Do you want to take time to discuss Donaldson Park and these phased park initiatives together?
Well, is anyone opposed to the improvements that have been mentioned here? I think everybody's probably in favor of it in general.
Yes.
Obviously, we don't have full dollar amounts, facts and figures at this point, so this is all just hypothetical, right? I guess the big question is, how far into these projects do we have to get before the money is, you know, considered dedicated to it or considered to be an ongoing project?
With the draft legislation that's before, that's being considered right now, it identifies that if money is not allocated to a project before October 1st, if you have not started that project, you're no longer allowed to allocate money to it. Granted, that could change in this legislative session. You know, it's still up in the air. I think they're running today through June 6th is when they're closing this special session. But the point being, we need to decide now. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. So do you want us to move forward with securing design bids on some of these projects and starting that process?
And that was kind of my question is, do you have to actually have RFPs that have been submitted, that have been replied to and have been approved for it to be considered an ongoing project?
I believe so, yes.
Well, in that case, do we need to vote on anything here tonight?
I would prefer that.
Okay. All right. So, on the first item, is anyone opposed to going ahead and approving to move forward as presented? Anyone opposed to it? Okay. Now, we would be voting as separate boards, or how would this happen?
Well, we have the advisory board here to let you know their feelings and what they would like to see. And then ultimately, it's your decision, the guidance that staff would implement.
Got it. Well, I'm not hearing any oppositions. Does anybody care to make a motion to approve so we can move forward?
I'll make a motion to approve. What is that? B4, I guess? That's a number.
Correct. Phase Park
B4
Initiative.
to, yes, to move forward and the other procedures.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, please call a roll.
Board member Clark.
Yes.
Board member Repeater. Yes. Board member Taylor.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes,
Motion.
very good.
The next item on the agenda is B5, Mall Beautification Activation Project. We have discussed a multi-phase mall beautification activation project, transforming the public space surrounding the Avon Park Mall. With this, the goal is to make it an interactive space that is usable going down Main Street. So the vision is that as we continue to build up Donaldson Park, this connects to that and gives people another walkway to really enjoy downtown Avon Park, because there are not many cities that have a mile-long median mall within their city limits. So the goal is to get some renderings and potentially phased initiatives to start that process in terms of extending the trail so that the whole mall is walkable, making it a Christmas destination with lighting. That's what I hear a lot, is there's not enough lighting in downtown, so people don't feel safe walking around in downtown after dark. So there's of course going to need to be some infrastructure improvements, some audio, so that we can have parades where you can actually hear what's going on throughout the parade and have music going up and down Main Street. So again, this is just a beginning concept, but we're going to need renderings and we're going to need to bring that to you. I just want to make sure that's something that you want to move forward with first.
Again, is there anyone opposed to moving forward with this project?
I'm not opposed, but I just have a question, if it's okay if we're doing questions now. The proposed walkway that you're trying to do, are you making that down the middle of the mall?
Yes.
So it's basically gonna be a continuation or an expansion of the walkway that's already there?
Correct. Yeah, there's some already in place, but not in every block. So hopefully to be able to use the entire walkway through the center and create some of those. Like I had Little Italy asking me the other day, if what's the possibility of them being able to use that area if people wanted to take their food over there, if there were extra lawn games or things like that where you could lounge around and have a picnic or whatever. And each block could potentially have its own character, its own feel. We can do sponsorships for the blocks and do some public-private partnerships with those. But yes, making the entire mall usable would be the goal, the end goal.
Okay, and I would also think that maybe in between blocks, we would have it indicated for pedestrians as they cross. But I notice
Absolutely.
a lot of our crosswalks are not pedestrian marked friendly.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yes.
And Jessica, one question. This will run from 27 all the way to Delaney? Where would it stop? Pretty much.
All the way to Donaldson Park, basically.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Is there a concept that for safety purposes, to eliminate the number of crossovers?
That, I think the DOT research that they did when the resurfacing project was coming about, I think they touched on that and there could be something in there, if I recall, but if I remember correctly, there was no way without eliminating certain roads to actually eliminate any crosswalks. And we're still gonna have a certain amount of crossroads that are there.
I didn't know if there was a percentage we could attempt. Whether it's 30 or 50% of it, just for safety purposes, if you have,
Sure.
if the masses come, with the amount of places that cars can cross over from north to south would be a consideration. In my mind.
I would say for staff, the first thing to do would be look in that DOT report whenever we were doing the resurfacing project, see if there's anything that's spelled out already. If not, we could ask DOT that question.
And then who does that, if we get a favorable reply to that, where's the expense?
If DOT,
CRA or
if DOT still owns it, maybe it's their problem. But as you know, that we're trying to get that, turned over to the city, so.
that's a huge budgetary item, if it's appropriate,
Right,
to allow the picture to actually come to reality.
sure.
So it looks like an end of forward.
There was talks of a future grant program after the resurfacing project that could possibly fund that, but it's all hearsay at this point.
I had a quick statement. The whole town's excited about what's going on. I mean, it's not just this U-shaped table, it's the entire town. Some questions came up, started at the Blueberry Festival, went into other areas where I've been around town. It's regarding safety, not so much what Mr. Jarrett was talking about, but how do we prevent homeless from being in the park? How do we prevent the dime bags and the needles from showing up that I see almost every weekend when I'm cleaning up around the shuffleboard area? Is there limitations? What can we do? This isn't coming from Chris Downey. This is coming from some pretty amount of people, about 15 people who have come forward to me. So it's just a concern. What are our limitations? What are our opportunities? What are we not allowed to do? If you can address that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure the CRA is probably the appropriate place, but certainly, Jerry, if you want to speak about it in our regular council meeting or.
Yeah, yeah, that's not, the answer is really not much we can do. We have ordinance that was based on a statute, but we've already gotten a letter from a nonprofit organization basically telling us they don't like us. So.
Okay. And I didn't mean to jump the gun or anything, but it's come up in every facet that I've been involved in the last 2 weeks.
Sure.
So.
Understood.
It almost seems to me like that would be an increased law enforcement.
Right.
Patrol type situation.
Yeah, just something we can address. I had in my notes to go over at some point, and when Bill mentioned safety, I thought it might be prevalent to bring it up, and I believe it was.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to the mall beautification project as presented?
No, but I do have one comment concerning the resurfacing and the future plans that we were gonna go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. This could cause a little bit of an issue to where we have more traffic going down Main Street. And I know that in the resurfacing plan, they also had a lot of turns that were going to turn left or basically left to go across the mall area or back. So they were going to add those turns in there. And so if you also at the main time you have just 2 lanes, then I think traffic's already starting to slow up. That's something when it comes time to that project, I think we might have to think about how well that's going to work out with the mall area project together. So I just wanted to bring it up that we can't do anything with the mall until it belongs to us. And then once it belongs to us, is it going to work with 2 lanes as compared to 4 lanes as far as usage, as well as far as safety, as well as far as using the sidewalk cafe issues in the future. So these are things we need to take a look at when the final decision needs to come up. Even though we approved it originally as is, I still have some of my concerns about the angle in parking and going down the 2 lanes.
Perhaps we could ask DOT if the final resurfacing plans have been completed yet, and if so, can we have a copy?
Yeah, I'll ask him that. I'm on a monthly meeting with them. They're gonna let the contract in October, which leads me to believe they're very close to even advertising that.
I have a question here, Jessica. Jessica, on this concept here, right down the middle of the median, is this gonna more or less take the place of the sidewalks? Or we're now gonna allow the businesses to put, their little tables and chairs on the sidewalk? And this is gonna be like the walk where everybody walk down if they up there? Or all, both the sidewalks plus this is gonna be, sidewalk's gonna stay the same. And then this is just gonna be something we add different.
Correct. Yeah, this would be a continuation. This would almost be a park in the center of Main Street.
Okay.
So it wouldn't replace sidewalks. It would be addition to.
Uh-huh.
So ideally, if and when we're allowed to do outside dining and seating,
Uh-huh.
obviously that will be in the sidewalks. You'll still have room and it'll be ADA accessible on the sidewalks, but this would allow for another path of travel, and just enjoyment on Main Street.
Okay, there's no further comments. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve B5.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Last call for questions. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member McGuire,
Yes.
Board Member McCure,
Yes.
Board Member Tower,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard,
Yes,
Chair Anderson,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you.
Next item on agenda is B6. Next slide. Next slide. We have signage installation and wayfinding program. I am asking that we launch the phased signage installation and wayfinding program to improve the visual appeal and support small businesses. You can see up here, we talked a little bit about these concepts at the advisory meeting, but whether that be historic signage, road signage, any type of wayfinding signs. Most cities, especially Sebring, I know Lake Placid and Wauchula have all incorporated these in their downtown districts. And so the program goal is to improve downtown navigation and walkability. It's branding, again, to restore and highlight historic and original signage when possible, and to establish a clear brand of what Avon Park stands for with consistent colors, materials, and style. And of course, to tie into future signage as we continue to expand and grow upon our CRA districts.
Any
Next
questions?
slide.
Go ahead.
And this is just another example of, typical signage, but I'm asking that we begin that process of seeking a signage package and deciding what we want it to look like and how we need to move forward with that package.
Is there anywhere specific that you're gonna concentrate more on the signage with as opposed to any other place? I mean, are you basically wanting to put it at the end of the mall, where next to 27, or are you looking to do the signage downtown more?
The goal ultimately would have to have a much large visual gateway signage to downtown on Main Street. This would be more so if you're walking around or driving down Main Street and you wanted to know where the key marker businesses and City Hall, those types of things were. So this is more concentrated on downtown, and of course, South Side, if we want to do a signage program down there. I don't think the airport needs it at this point, but mainly on Main Street at this point.
So this would be for beautification and informational, pretty much.
I'm sorry, can you say
This
that?
would be more beautiful for beautification and informational.
Correct.
Mm.
Yeah. So mainly, I mean, both. But when people are walking around, it's directional signage that says there's a lot of things, other things going around here. So if you're walking down the retail shops, you know directionally where City Hall is or where the parks are and things like that. So the goal is that it's keeping people moving to the various areas in your downtown. And when you're in a car, it's very easy to navigate where you need to go.
And it's beautifying the city as well.
Correct.
I would add that you could also put, say, even on Memorial Drive, wayfinding to, Ben Hicks Boat Ramp, Tulane, the nice beach you have there, and the pier we're going to put in, and the different parks, the YMCA, you just have this consistent, nice looking wayfinding throughout your city. It really makes a difference.
Did the other towns indicate if they were CRA funded or town funded?
I can only speak for Wauchula, and I know that was a CRA, well, it was a collaboration between Main Street and the CRA together, but it was CRA funded.
I would assume that before any of these things are actually carried out, we will consult with our paid attorney.
Absolutely.
Very good. All right, is there any objections to this program? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve B6 signage installation and wayfinding program.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Last call for questions. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member Water,
Yes.
Board Member Future,
Yes.
Board Member Tower,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Item number B7 is, next slide, please. Sidewalk activation grant. We're going to start getting into more specific dollar amounts for reimbursable grants that I am proposing for CRA usage. First one being a sidewalk activation. And the goal of this is to get people sitting and eating outside. So whether that I did speak with FDOT regarding, because it is an FDOT owned road at this point. They did state once the road belongs to the city, it's a non-issue. If we wanted to propose this in the meantime, she said we could get a general use permit for something like this, and that should not be an issue with them, assuming again that ADA compliance is being recognized and enforced. And so really this is just to, again, outdoor business activity, improve walkability and bring energy. Up here in most downtowns, people are just sitting and hanging out outside. We need more people doing that in downtown Avon Park. And so I am proposing a reimbursable grant up to $5,000 for sidewalk level improvements once we were able to get the permit to promote outdoor business activity and enhance the pedestrian environment.
We really don't own the sidewalks. Those are DOT. So I'm sure they would be happy to have you improve them, but I'm just wondering about the liability associated with that, whether we've got to enter into some kind of agreement indemnifying them.
That I think is where the general use permit comes into play. If we go and submit an application for that, and if it's approved, then I'm assuming the liability at that point falls on the city.
So I just want to ask a question since you brought this up. If or when we own Main Street, that will be ours anyway, and it would be our liability, correct?
Well,
At that point,
yeah, I would think so. So if they give us all Main Street, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine they wouldn't.
right?
But if they keep the roads, they may keep the sidewalks as well, because that is an expansion area for them.
Yeah, it's my understanding they're not keeping the roads. They're going to
Okay,
do
so
the
the whole thing.
improvement and they're transferring it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mall, everything.
Mhm.
And Jessica, this is where each business said if they want to apply for this, they will have to apply for this.
Correct. So we'll need to come up with a grant application process and the specifics of this grant to determine eligibility and what that would look like. But ultimately, what a lot of other cities have done, which is what this is mirrored after, is just provide a $5,000 grant for them. I know downtown Sebring did that recently with the HGTV that allows us to help them obtain planters, decorative railing, fencing, umbrellas, anything that makes it an outdoor, nice dining experience, lighting, things like that.
Would most of the business be able to apply for this? And reason why I'm asking is I'm thinking maybe in certain areas, some of them don't have as much space as others. So they would everybody wouldn't pretty much qualify because of the space, right? Or
Correct. It doesn't necessarily need to be an outdoor dining area. It could just be anything that brought life to their outdoor space to
And it
make
could be
it
on the
more
back?
inviting.
it
And
could be in the back of their
it would
business?
have it would be a front entry. Mhm.
don't want these comments to be negative, but how is business identified from being responsible for putting their clients out there in the event of an issue that involves a vehicle? How do we have to work on this in such a way that they have checked their own, they've safeguarded against their own?
Well, so the sidewalks themselves, you have to still allow for passage of ADA width. And then that would be one liability issue associated with people walking through that area if it goes out further. Because that was an issue we had during COVID. We thought about adding those sidewalk things, but as far as their identification of the city, on top of that, you know, I'm just, you know, we can do is get them to ask them to identify us and as far as the cars coming through there, I don't know how anybody stops that really.
I just want, I'm in favor of the whole concept. Look, but I want everybody's eyes wide open. Business, if they're gonna do business outside on the sidewalk and serve out on the sidewalk potentially, which is done all over North America. How does everybody have their eyes wide open to protect?
It would just be something I'd have to look into with regard to that and research what has been done elsewhere, but you know, there's really nothing anybody can do, whether it's a city or the like a restaurant, and somebody runs their car off the side of the street. You know, and so I'm sure there has to be a setback distance anyway, but that's not going to protect everybody.
Thank
I do want to point out with the proposed reconfiguration of Main Street that you will have that buffer of cars parked on the angle, protecting the sidewalk and pedestrians to some extent.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to this program? Seeing none? Is there a motion?
I make the motion to approve B8 for the, sorry, B7 for the sidewalk activation grant.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Let's call for questions. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member Dwyer,
Yes.
Board Member McCarron.
Yes.
Board Member Towns.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes,
Yes.
So before we go on real quick, so part of the application, we would have to ensure whatever they're buying to put out there is safe and secure and what, you know, we talked about weather and stuff before, windstorms, rainstorms in the summer. So it would have to be very specific on what's allowed to be outside. I would think if we're owning the sidewalks, but yet we're choosing, allowing them to buy things to put on the sidewalks, but yet we're still liable. You know, maybe checking that out, you know.
Okay, B8.
B8, window activation grant. Next slide. Next slide. The CRA is proposing a window activation grant to improve the visual appeal of vacant and underutilized storefronts within our redevelopment area. This initiative will support low-cost, high-impact visual enhancements that transform inactive windows to creative and engaging street-facing displays. We all know there are several downtown buildings that are vacant. They are not visually appealing for whatever reason. They are not being used at this moment. There's nothing we can really do about that, but we can offer, I have proposed a $2,500 eligible storefront window enhancement project. And so that's just giving us an ability to offer something to help them improve their window frontage so that it is more visually appealing when you're walking or driving by those existing structures.
Any questions?
Yes, I do. Jessica, these are people that may or may not, well, let's just say they may not want to rent their building or sell it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give them $2,500 to put in a window,
A window
That's right.
covering.
window covering.
Yeah, so it's art to display in those windows. So at least it's a little more visually inviting from the outside looking in. Now what's going on the inside, certainly we can't do anything about that, but.
And so just for my information, have you contacted any of these businesses, you know, the ones that the building been vacant for what, 20, 30 years or whatever? Have you contacted any of these businesses to see if they was interested in doing this? I'm just curious.
I have not spoken. I know a lot of them are either in renovation currently, or I don't have a contact number for those, or they're in litigation or whatever the case may be with those buildings.
And about how many of these buildings that we may have to do, if the owners give us permission, about how many are we looking at? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a good question. I can think of probably 10 off the top of my head that
10.
could use it, but whether they accept it or not, I mean, that's totally up to the business owner, so.
But it's not just for vacant businesses, right? It's for any
It's any
business.
business.
For any business?
Yeah,
For any business.
Oh, okay.
right. So more than likely, you're not gonna get the vacant businesses that are gonna use it. You're probably gonna get a business that wants to create some sort of a marketing tool or something to beautify their building to invite people in type of thing.
Jessica, quick question. So I'm from Philly originally, and this worked in Philly. And what ended up happening is people saw what was happening with some of the windows, and they actually bought the building because they saw a future with it. Has this worked somewhere else that you applied this to? And how did it go?
I have not personally applied it anywhere, but I know downtown Sebring has taken this approach as
Right.
well with some of their vacant buildings that are on the circle
Right.
currently. I mean, you have people that are there viewing the circle every day, and just having those windows, you know, where do you see your business here type thing potential? I think it just creates a more inviting atmosphere for people that may not even know that that was an option, to at least look further into that.
Because I love this. When we looked at it on the CRA, I love the idea behind it because it's beautification to begin with. But then potential could be the building looks a little different now. So maybe there could be an option for what I want to do in there, perhaps. So thank you.
And Jessica, they get to decide, the business owner.
Absolutely. Yeah, we won't do anything without business.
I will say that Jessica's the carrot and I'm gonna be the stick here, but we are researching ordinances to implement from other cities to require these owners to do something that are absentee. So we'll be bringing that back at a later date as well.
That was my next question. And also, are you gonna give them different options, different sceneries, different, pictures to choose from, or is it gonna just be?
That's a really great question. We have next the public art proposal. So I think as a board, we need to decide what that needs to look like. Do we want more art themed things with color and fun, or do we want more history based things, or do we want a collaboration? And ultimately, if we want to narrow those down to maybe 20 options that they get to pick from, then that might make it a little easier. But at this point, I don't have any specific ideas.
Only
for it.
because I've been to a town in North Florida and it's escaped my mind, Tavares or Dade City or somewhere. They have this concept up there, but they have a storefront that looks like people that are in there. So I didn't know if they had the option to pick the you know, the people being in the building as opposed to having flowers all over the building. So.
I like the idea of options, to give them something that reflects them and their personality and, you know, what we want in downtown. But I think that's a great idea. Having some grayed out, visualizing people in there with maybe a pretty backdrop.
And
So-
just. Go ahead.
So would we dictate the materials that were used then, so that we can make sure that it's gonna last more than just a quick 30-day?
Yeah, I need to get with some signage companies to see even what the panels would cost. I mean, how much can we get for $2,500? I'm not sure at this point. I'm guessing it's more of like a peel and stick vinyl that goes on either in the inside or the exterior of the building, but I would certainly, buildings are not flipping in a matter of 30 days, so it needs to last for at
Right.
least 6 months to a year, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe a resolution standard, you know, or some type of image standards as well. I'm sure the sign company could tell you real quick.
And Jessica, where I was going earlier with it, when I asked you, do they get to decide? What if somebody choose something that's not appealing to the city? And we pay for it, we're paying for it. That's where I was going with it.
Ultimately, I'd like this to work like our facade grants.
Uh-huh.
We would propose it in front of advisory, get the recommendation and bring it to the board so
Oh.
that we prevent that from happening.
Okay.
Just a note that I have to consider this, your sign ordinance. With regard to any writing and things like that go in. Now, we'll look at that when time comes, but just something to keep in mind.
Thank you for that.
Wait a minute, a sign ordinance on the inside of the building?
Outside.
Also, yeah,
Right, but if the film doesn't go on the, if it goes on the inside, how would that?
it doesn't matter as long as it's visible from the street.
In other words, we want it to be beautiful. He doesn't want it just as an advertisement of something. Is that what you're getting at?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So no,
Or
per se,
we should start putting into it, the board's gonna start offending the sign ordinance.
Yeah.
And so haven't looked at it recently, but I'm just bringing it up as an issue.
Right.
All right, is anyone opposed to B8, the window activation grant? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
okay, I'll make a motion to approve B8 for the window activation grant.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Last call for questions. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member Dwyer,
Yes.
Board Member
All right.
Carey,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard,
Yes,
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
This one may require a little deeper discussion, but we'll just dive right in. Currently, we don't have anything available for small business incentive grants. So this is proposing a program that would be a 50-50 reimbursable match up to $10,000 to support startup and expansion costs for eligible small businesses that were wanting to recruit to our CRA areas. Grant funds would be used for capital related expenses essential to business operation and storefront activation. Again, 50% match eligible to new businesses operating within the CRA, existing businesses that is expanding into new location within CRA, startups with valid business license, sign lease, and business plan. The eligible uses would be commercial grade equipment and furnishing, build out cost, code related compliance upgrades, signage, point of sale systems, startup professional services. Obviously, we again don't have anything like this currently. It would not be eligible for wages at payroll, inventory, merchandise, routine operating costs, debt service, taxes. This is more so if we want to take on a recruitment type economic development program to get some of the businesses that we currently do not have in our downtown or any CRA district, and allowing an incentive to get them started to do so.
Okay, questions? Comments?
I have a couple. I like all of the eligible uses except for the startup professional services. I feel like the other things that are listed are actual items, real, tangible, that can help a business. I'm not sure. I feel like the startup professional services could kind of lead down a rabbit hole, in my opinion. Also under ineligible uses, I would think not including rent or purchase costs for a property. And then also, as far as the grant agreement, if it would be possible if we put minimum standards in for how long the business has to remain open in order for the funds to be fully forgiven.
Any other questions, comments?
So I'd like for you to explain that a little bit more on the time frame that you want them to be open.
My thought is so that we don't give them up to $10,000 for them to buy these certain things and then only stay there for, 90 days and then we're out 10 grand and,
So you're looking at what, how long?
I would say 3 years.
I agree with that.
Yes. You're talking about $10,000.
We did discuss potentially reducing that each year you're in business. So year 3, maybe you owe 50%, year 4, after year 5, then you don't owe any.
Right. So it's almost
Any of
like a
it back.
loan, a forgivable loan rather than a grant, but it could become a grant as long as you are in the business for a certain amount of
X
time.
number of years. Yes,
You provide for an agreement that amortizes it by the year.
correct, right.
And your startup professional services, you had why do you feel like that's taken us down the rabbit hole?
Because I feel like that's something that a business should have done before getting to any of these other things. So I feel like a strong business plan development, should be something that they are willing and able to invest in. Because if they can't provide their own startup or professional services, I feel like there's not much hope of them being able to provide the rest of it. So I feel like that's a good investment. If they have that much invested, then they are willing to make a harder push for it to actually be successful.
I agree with that too, Brittany. I think that makes common sense. If you, opening up a business is something that, should be a dream, something that you, put it in your heart and soul as well as your bank account into. And I think it's a great idea for us to give them a push start as an incentive to get going. But if they don't have the startup cost to get going, then I mean, that sounds like it's a business ready for failure. I mean, it's hard enough as it is to open up any kind of business and stay open past a year. So that's something we have to be concerned about. But I agree with Brittany that if they don't have the startup cost, you know, maybe something that we could incentives, maybe water tax, something like that. But I think we have to take a second look at that also.
I like to say that, I thought this was one of the reason why we was doing it, to help them with the startup. I get it. Most businesses don't get up on their feet to what, 2-3 years? I mean, a good 2-3 years. And we're making them, if we're gonna put an incentive program to make them pay it back if they don't stay for a certain amount of time, then why does it matter whether they had the startup fee? We were making them pay it back in the end anyway.
Not if they're in business for a certain amount of time. And I feel like you don't want just a bunch of people thinking they have a good thought, but not putting enough thought process into it to make sure it's going to be successful. And a lot of times there are businesses like that. So I feel like they need to think really hard about whether or not they're going to have what it takes to make that business successful. And it's not guaranteed. I understand that. But when you're talking about giving a business $10,000, and okay, so say you pass out $10,000 and they're in business for 3 months. I don't feel like that's a good use of CRA funds. And I don't feel like it really shines a good light on the city either. I feel like if they take the time to really think this out and have a solid plan, which means that they're putting in their own time, money, and investment into the startup costs, the professional startup costs. You know, we're helping with these hard costs like build out. I mean, that's a huge expense for a business to do a build out inside. It's a huge expense if they are having to do compliance upgrades. If you're talking about fire, electrical, plumbing, those are huge expenses that we're willing to help them get started with. But I feel like it's on them to actually have a good solid plan prior to getting to that point.
I think
So before this money is given to them, can't we ask them for their plan? Their business plan if they don't have one?
Well, you
then-
could, but then that means we wouldn't pay for it anyway, because that would be retroactive.
I just don't see a lot of people doing it if we can help them get started. I mean.
Well, we are helping them get started. The part I was talking about was startup professional services. So a legal setup, so forming your corporation, a business plan development, permitting assistance. So all of the rest of those things on that list are startup costs
Mhm.
that we would be willing to help. 10,000 is gonna be done in a heartbeat with just one of those other items.
Mhm.
So I feel like them doing the last step, the last one on that list is not the last step, it's your first step. But for them putting in, they have some more skin in the game, so they're gonna think a lot harder about what they're doing, how they're spending their money, and how they're going to go forth and market their business.
I would like to point out, I do have it listed on here as a reimbursable matching grant, meaning they pay 100% of all the expenses and then we reimburse them after the expenses are paid as well. They're gonna have to come up with those costs upfront unless you want to structure it differently.
Unless we want to, what,
Oh.
Jessica?
Structure the grant differently.
You have something?
Yeah,
I remember many years ago, we had a young man came in, did a presentation about opening up a business. I think Miss Brenda Gray was on council during that time. And he presented what he was gonna do, and he laid out a very good plan. He did everything, jumped to all the hurdles and everything, turned his receipts in, got reimbursed, never opened a business,
And walked away with the money
and walked away with the money.
because y'all didn't set any
Right. I
roadblocks.
mean, so this happened. I mean, he had a great plan. He was gonna do this, and he jumped all through the hurdles and
Was that a CRA plan or was that?
CRA.
Sir?
Yeah.
That wasn't a business owner's fault.
No, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
he did whatever was necessary.
He
And
met all the requirements.
he
right?
met all the requirements, and he was gonna do this, and he had great ideas. And he got approved and
Never did.
got the money and say, hasta la
So
vista.
what didn't happen? Did nobody put a judgment against him or anything and just?
How can you?
Bye?
I mean, he,
He met all the criterias. CRA and the council didn't set any roadblocks.
right, and he did legitly, but he just walked away with the money. Thank you, but no thank you.
We could structure this where maybe they get 20% payment per year that they're open, let's say. So after year one, they get $2,000, year two, and so on, when they present those receipts that they've already paid for those eligible expenses, and then it's more of a tiered reimbursement grant. So,
I
So
like
then
that.
maybe the 5-year, like you were saying 3, I don't know if 5-year would be too much, but then we could do the $2,000 per year until they reach the 5-year.
absolutely.
Is the grant paid back to the business open, the ribbon has been cut?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jared, what was your question?
Trying to keep my eyes wrapped around, my heart wrapped around, when do you give them the money? If we're cutting the ribbon, the business open. Why wouldn't you give them all the money? Because they've spent, I don't know, if business you can open. Unless you. Quarter of me, I don't know. The drop in the bucket of
Right.
$10,000 we're gonna pay for cutting the ribbon. It's just, you say we welcome you, thank you for coming.
Well, you can give them the money, but you should have an agreement where you amortize
I get
that. Because we've been burnt by that before.
And you've given money before the business is open.
No, the business was open and did exactly what they were supposed to do, but then they sold it shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And it didn't go for the service that they said they were gonna provide it for.
So currently on the books today, is there a redevelopment, is there a recruitment methodology through the city? There's nothing on the books for anybody to approach the city for recruitment.
Whatever you want to write down there, buddy.
No, I just, when this gets approved. Thank you for opening our minds. I want to know what's coming at us as an advice, if we're going to be advising.
Right.
And what is the historically, now, the example the vice chairman just gave, the person never showed up at a business anyway. They never had a grand opening, and somebody had the money before all that took place. I guess if I understood the example from the vice chairman.
Yeah.
So, but $10,000, I'm not even sure how much of a thank you that would be to come. But great, if it's a larger number, then it's certainly it's over 5 years. But that number right there, to open up a business that everybody's approved and saw and had a part of the permitting, had a part of the code enforcement, had a part of the advisory, yeah, please come, we need a business like that.
It's designed to fill the vacancies.
And there's enough stop checks along the way, I think you could say, that's not gonna work, okay.
I don't think we actually have the ability to tell them, no, they can't open a business, though. We would just be telling them, no,
No,
they
thank you,
can't.
that we're not gonna
get
write a check.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to get educated, and I'm thrilled to be able to look at some of these examples and understand it better from the example come at us.
You know, there's a lot of discussion on this one. I think we could table it and bring it back for additional discussion at a future date. I would love to see this wrapped in with SFSC, and we had talked about an incubator and getting them involved. There's a wonderful example at UCI called The Cove, where they have entrepreneurs like yourselves that mentor young college kids, and then they could bring them here for funding. So, you know, let's give us some opportunity to flesh this out a little more.
And the college actually already has a department that helps individuals write business plans and things like that.
Mhm.
You might want to speak to this CRA attorney as well, because this is something that I recall from the conference where they said that, that the legislature had done away with these types of projects, the incubators and new business direction, although it's allowed before.
Okay, we'll fund it under Jessica's other hat.
I just have one other comment, I think that would help maybe solve some of that issue. Like I said, going before, I think the incentive would be to grant somebody a reduction in, you know, that their taxes and water and sewer and things like that, that really isn't taking money out of the city's pocket. It's directly out, it's just as an incentive, like to come in and, you know, we won't charge you any, Avon Park City business tax for like a year. That would be incentive. It's money that we wouldn't make, but it's also money that we're not necessarily losing. So we wouldn't have to worry about whether the business makes it or not makes it, and whether it pays it back or doesn't pay it back. You know, if they don't make it, they don't make it, and then all we were lost out with whether it's taxes or water or sewer for a year or something like that. Instead of them giving money as we go along, because that's like you said, you're giving money to businesses that may or may not make it, and then it seems like it's lost. Where if we got an empty building and we're not getting any property taxes or water or sewer from it now, and we had somebody move in and give them that for say a year or whatever, sounds good to everybody, then we still wouldn't be out anything if they didn't make it in a year or so. Because we were out of that money by not having anybody there to begin with, so that would keep us not worrying about somebody paying us back. Just my idea.
Okay.
For future.
Do we have a motion to table this indefinitely?
I don't know about indefinitely.
That's just the standard.
That's easy.
motion.
It's postponed.
Postpone.
I'll make a motion to postpone B9 indefinitely.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Last call for questions. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Yes.
Board Member McCure,
Yes.
Board Member Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes.
Chair Hicks.
Yes. Thank you.
Next slide. We're now at B10, Public Art and Beautification Grant Program. This is implement a 50-50 reimbursable matching grant of up to $15,000 for eligible public facing art and beautification projects within the CRA districts. All projects must be installed by the applicant or qualified artist, remain in place for a minimum of 3 years, and comply with all applicable codes and permitting requirements. As you know, if you've been around Lake Placid, Sebring, I was in Punta Gorda this weekend. Murals are something that people love right now. So eligible uses would be murals on commercial buildings, sculptures, installations, landmark art pieces, artist designed benches, bike racks, planters, entryway features, decorative crosswalks, sidewalk decals, pavement art with city approval, of course, interpretive signage or art that reflects cultural, historic, and community identity, and small scale lighting for artistic and beautification purposes.
Okay. Do we have any mural guidelines to avoid, some sort of a lewd mural or something to that effect?
You'd have to establish some kind of
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's,
approval-
I'm all for it. I just think,
approval committee of some type. Otherwise,
Within
you
reason.
could get some bizarre stuff.
sure.
Next slide. And this is some examples of that. And of course, we would need to lay some guidelines as to what type of art, just like on the window installations, what we want here in Avon Park. But for instance, manhole covers, we can paint that, utility boxes, doors, water towers. I mean, art, anywhere we can put art, that just creates a little bit of a happy moment for people.
Any questions or concerns?
Just one, is there a reason for the ineligible uses that you put, because you wanted, saw somewhere about 36 months that you wanted it to remain in place for 36 months, but then the temporary or removable decorations not installed to last a minimum of only 12 months.
Yeah, that was more so we're not paying for seasonal decor, whether that be Christmas or fall or things of that nature, just making sure that the dollars are, there's longevity in those grant dollars.
So, because it has to remain in place for at least 3 years. So does that mean that the cost, if it only lasts 12 months, then they would have to replace it so that it can stay there for the remaining 2 years?
It's a good question. And I guess the only way that would, I mean, obviously the art, hopefully if we're using the right paint, then that's going to stick around. I guess where that is sculptures or bike racks or things like that, if they were destroyed, and who would replace that. So we would need to come up with some guidelines on that to ensure that it's a lasting feature and it's not temporary.
Are you gonna let them put their name on it? Meaning this artwork was done by John Smith? Because if their work looks awful, their name is on it. So I don't think they're gonna be too, I think they'll want their artwork to look nice.
Yeah. I would say, you know, Sebring, all the new murals there, their names on that. So, yeah.
I think those people down there want their artwork to be faded or peeling, right?
Sure.
Because that's their name.
Can we put somebody else's name?
I can think of somebody.
Is it possible that we could get them to start early enough to replace the current Christmas decoration that we have that should have been gone years ago?
I will say that there's a community group that is going to be conducting a Christmas in July event where a lot of the business owners and who's who will get together and decide what are going to be the new decorations for Avon Park.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions on this project?
No, I definitely like the public art, that's for sure.
I do have a question on that.
Go ahead.
So when you were talking about like the manholes or crosswalks, so would that just be the city of Avon Park paying for half and the CRA applying for a grant to pay for the other half? How does that work?
So the manholes specifically, we have already reached out to the foundry to get pricing on different ideas that we could do. And we were looking specifically at Main Street, replacing the dozen or so down there after FDOT does their repaving projects. So kind of a kickoff of pretty manhole covers. But yeah, that would be a city initiative. But other than that, the other art installations, that would be the grant.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I just don't have, I have one statement. I hope that once this goes forward and we do decorate the manholes, that we can talk our public works into treating them with care when they yank them up out of the ground. Think so? Maybe? Okay, let's do that.
Jessica, I would love to see the manhole in all the CRA districts if funding is available. And it looked like up there by the airport, we got nothing to do out there, so. Yeah, I would love to see if the district have the money left over after different projects. I would love to see the manhole painted in all the districts.
Absolutely.
Throw a little color everywhere.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
But did you say that couldn't be paid for by the CRA? That's paid for by the city?
Honestly, I was looking at it as a city expense when I first started researching the manhole covers.
Yeah, don't get too excited about the CRA expense because it's not bricks and mortar.
Right.
And it's a really long distance away from bricks and mortar, so maybe, but one of those things I won't keep repeating it, but pass it by the CRA attorney, but I'm thinking this fails to be bricks and mortar. So it'll probably be a city expense.
I don't know, maybe I'm naive, but I just don't see how it would cost a lot of money to paint the manholes, but I could be value with that.
Do you know how much a mural usually costs? Like, where did the 15,000 come from?
15,000 was more for large scale sculptural
Okay.
things. If people wanted to invest in that, maybe in front of their business or later on the mile, down the median there. Now some of these buildings are quite large. So if you have a motivated business owner that wants to put a huge mural down the side of their building, that could potentially cost thousands of dollars.
So Jerry, real quick, so like if somebody wants to do a $15,000 sculpture and they want to apply for the grant and we give it to them, can we allow them to put it on our median?
I mean,
Because you mentioned the mile long mall, right? But
Mhm.
because the individual business owners won't own the mall. But can they petition for or apply for the grant, receive it, do the sculpture, but then put it on public property?
yeah, I think they would think that the city would be able to do that, but I just basically say caution because, you know, when you start talking about large murals standing alone, you know, you're starting to look like, advertisement, basically, you know, and, there's a, so how is this allowed? And yet a big advertisement's not allowed.
Mhm.
But start to get into those issues. Now, if it's your property, you're gonna have to let anybody put it up. But nevertheless, it's like one of those things where you're making an overbroad ordinance in that situation. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just simply saying that it's something we'd have to look at to make sure that it falls, you know, within that framework.
I think Jessica has that in eligible uses, right, for advertisement so it's already kind of covered.
Correct. So art and signage promoting a single business or advertisement would be ineligible. However, there could be a plaque or something that says in conjunction of a public-private partnership with XYZ who provided half of the match funds to do that.
Okay.
So really, it's just a way to do
Is it?
a partnership with someone to get some pretty things in Avon Park.
Once again, it's not bricks and mortar. It might be acceptable, but it's always, it would be more likely to be acceptable if it was done in conjunction with a facade rent of some type, you know, because in that case, it's an approved project being expanded to allow to be modified into that aspect of it. So if somebody was getting their whole facade redone and they added this mural as part of it, you're more likely, I think, but check with the attorney on that.
Yeah, if you decide to move forward with this, I will put in a grant application and the specifics together, send that to Cliff and have him review it before I present it at the next meeting.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion? Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve B10, public art and beautification grant program.
We have a motion and we have a second. Last call for questions. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member Dwyer,
Yes.
Board Member Kira,
Yes.
Board Member Allen,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Hart.
Yes,
Chair.
Yes.
Next slide. Item number B11 is CRA Facade Block Blitz Grant Program. Don't say that fast. This is an idea to take what we're currently doing for our facade grants and trying to make a much bigger impact. As you saw on the finances, a lot of the facade grants in the south side is almost exhausted. Main Street, we haven't really used any of those funds. This is more of a target-based program where instead of just leaving it open and everyone just applies that either knows about it or in various blocks where we're not making any true measurable change in that block, as a board targeting which communities, which blocks specifically you want to make a measurable change in. So maybe that's in conjunction with some of these parks that we're already working on. Let's target the neighborhoods around those parks and then start expanding our way outwards. Hopefully that will streamline our the way we're paying our contractors. I know that's a big issue right now because sometimes it's 2 to 3 months by the time they're getting the project starting and getting paid. And a lot of these smaller contractors don't have the means to go that long. So perhaps if we're targeting, let's say 10 to 12 houses at a time, we can go out for a much larger RFP and then do deposit payments to them. And they're getting paid, they're happy, and we're seeing a much larger change on a block perspective. And it's streamlining that application process for them versus them coming to us. We're going to them and saying, you've been pre-selected. Would you like to join this program? And hopefully by the end of that block blitz, we have a much larger appreciation for what those grant dollars did at that time.
Jessica, I tell you, I really like this program a lot, and I'll tell you the reason why, because we had a public works director previously that was into trying to handpick the repaving of our streets. And I know at one time we had somebody go around and we numbered, 1 through 10, the good, bad streets and so on and so forth. And his philosophy was why don't we just do like one whole street in one whole area? And that way, when you drive down that street or a couple of streets in a certain area, you see the change for the whole area. Like instead of just, a street here, a street on that side, all over. Why not just do a certain section for a while and certain section for a while? It has a larger impact. So I think this has the same type of an idea, where instead of trying to pick and choose homes here and there in a certain community, if you did a whole street, whether they wanted their house painted or added some windows or doors or some facade improvement, that way you'd have to pick and choose how you would go about it. But this way you wouldn't have anybody going out there picking and choosing for it. We would just say, hey, here's your choice. Would you like to have your house painted? We're doing this whole block, in the next 3 months or something. Yes or no, sign a piece of paper. Like you said, open bid, then it's all done. And I think that way people go down and say, hey, have you been down, Orange Street lately? I mean, every house in the whole neighborhood's all been painted. It all looks wonderful. It really stands out. I can't wait till they get to our neighborhood, so on and so forth. So I like this way because it isn't like just a house here and there all over the community. It's getting like one area done at a time, which makes it more noticeable.
And I too like this, but I have some issues with this, and I'm not sure if the advisory board or even the city council knows that the facade grant program was also designed that the area where the work was done, it was also designed for that area to do the work and get that particular community involved in that area to help beautify their area. So when you bring in big contractors, that takes away from a part of how it was designed originally. But if they willing to hire if they on the main side of CRA and they're willing to hire people within that area to help out, and if you hire a big contracting company on the south side, if they're willing to hire people within that area to help out, then I'm all game for it.
Contractors, then subcontractors
Yes.
working under them.
Yes.
That makes sense too.
Isn't this just pertaining to commercial?
This would be all facade grants. So 5,000 would remain. So let's say we picked the block around City Hall, for instance. Maybe we go around, that whole block has commercial and residential. And so we would keep the current facade grant that's 5,000, 100% funded.
So then just the matching portion is just the commercial.
Commercial, yeah. So then let's say our much larger commercial buildings, it's a $10,000 match. So, and then 2 stories, 15,000, because obviously so much larger square footage.
And the other thing, Jessica, I would, like I said, I would love it, but I'm trying to figure out what big contractor would want to come in, because it's hard to get them. It's hard to get small contractors. So, for the amount of money, it's kind of hard to get large contractors to come in for the amount of money that we're offering. But if we can make it happen, I'm all for it.
And I'm hoping the way we're incentivizing, they're getting paid upfront to cover some of their material costs, then we'll get more interest in that hopefully. So obviously, if you're doing painting and doors and windows, we're gonna get a GC probably doing the RFP, but then subcontracting, like you said, hopefully to local contractors in that area. But I think it's the repayment policy that's keeping us from getting the interest in contractors.
Yeah, I think we had one homeowner that actually bought windows or something from a local big box store, and then they had the contractor install it for them. And it seemed like it worked out well for that person, so that's a similar type of an idea. You know, if they think they can get a better price on the windows, go in that direction and find a contractor to install it, then it works out better for them. They might get one extra window that way. Same thing. I think it's a great idea, at least to look at, for sure.
All right, I have a question. Jim, you had stated that, okay, so we pick one part of town and we start on that part of town and you drive by, wow, that looks great. I can't wait till they come over here on my side of town. So then they go to the next one. Well, how come they're not coming over here to my side of town? How much longer is that gonna be? So I feel like maybe we need to have some sort of a, I don't know,
Lottery.
either that or something that's gonna make it fair and have the residents realize we're not favoring this neighborhood over your neighborhood. Because even whenever they went to pick up the brush after the hurricane, a lot of people were complaining, how come they're doing it over here on this side of town and not over here on this side of town? I got brush too that didn't get picked up. So I feel like we're gonna have to come up with something that's fair for all the residents. And they're gonna have to realize that it's fair, but good luck with that.
I think that's the beauty in it. You're gonna have people that want that, so you're gonna have more collaboration to wanna get that done for that specific community. I think that's the brilliance of it, is that people are gonna wanna have something that lock down the street had,
They are gonna,
right?
right.
So how do they get themselves and their community
Right,
together?
so what if we get all the way to every single community and this neighborhood it was last? Well, we're out of money.
And if we have time, I definitely want to hit on an idea to hopefully streamline some of that as well.
Okay.
How to do grant cycles.
We have not had this come before to the advisory board. But the concept in writing now that it's a match. We rolled out money after money. Nobody had to pay any part. They were just coming for the $5,000. To get somebody organized, to your point, and they have to have skin. And they have to match the money that I think there's a level of seriousness that has never come before the advisory board for 3 years. Because they just came $5,000, $2,500, $49. But if the word match is always used. $10,000 if you show for 5. I think you have another level of commitment. And the numbers should go higher. We should be able to provide $20,000 for those who can show $10,000 and make significant change to a block or to an area. With this, to continue with the $25,000 to $5,000 of painting and restoration for the front of. I think we've tried. I think it's time to try another level, both of dollars and commitment on both sides.
Do you have a suggested dollar amount?
This is a nice step. The first step is probably 5. It should go. The cost of doing business that comes from our charities of what it costs to get started on a project approaches $50,000 for any significant change to a block. So if an entire block or entire area that involves 4 or 5 businesses or homes, I would think the level of interest in splitting $50,000 would be intriguing to have that discussion come before us, discuss what is a long-term plan and be able to spend it willingly over an area of structure.
Well, I think one thing on the residents, as you very well know, we've gone from 2,500 where they had to pay up front and that reimbursed to now we're up to 5,000 to where we pay the contractor at the end. But I think we also recently had one facade grant there was maybe, the total was like over $6,000. And the citizen that participated, they were willing to pay the extra $1,000 out of pocket. And so that's always another choice to look at too, because you're right, costs are always going to continue to rise. That's an option you always have to look at your funds and how far you want to reach them, whether you on your next budget, but you want to change it to $6,000 or $7,000, because that may be a normal cost for the increase of importing different paint products and so on and so forth. So that's something that constantly has to be changed. But like you said, if somebody has a rather large home and it's going to cost $10,000 to paint it, we only give them 5,000. If they're willing to match, put the 5,000 in, then we'll still give them the 5,000. So it is kind of a match program if they need it. But that's up to you guys to start first and bring it to us. But I think it's definitely something to look at, because rising costs and changes are definitely going to happen within this country and in our community for sure.
But I bring it up because I don't know how you feel.
Okay.
Concept of that.
Okay.
And there's some things that the agenda allows us and time allows us, there's some things that the advisory board would like to know your feeling. If they would come before us.
Okay.
So, and this is just one, because of the significant of dollars.
Right.
Dollars it takes to make it, in fact, step forward.
Sure.
And Jessica, the last thing I want to bring to your attention is there are some homes that sit inside the CRA district, but they don't qualify. Because when Randy goes out to do them, Randy pretty much, correct me if I'm wrong, Randy pretty much decide if that house need whatever they're requesting for. Because I know there was one that came before us, it was denied. He did have a beautiful home. Let's keep it real. Only thing he wanted done was the back door. His back door had rotted. Can you see his back door from the street behind him? Yes. But because his home was beautiful, it was nice. It's like, I think Randy quoted, it was one of the best in the neighborhood. So my question is, it sat in the CRA district, but because it looked so well, the council voted against it. So when we go and do these blitz blocks, there are going to probably be some houses that don't qualify. Then what we do with those? And they're not going to be too happy knowing the whole block got done and we saying their house can't get done. Because there are some houses that don't qualify. But they sit inside the districts.
Absolutely. I think in those cases where they don't need painting or windows, doors, any type of brick cleaning, I mean, there's different things that permanent entry, planters and landscaping, I mean, any permanent fixture on the home, if we can't figure out a way that it fits legally, then I don't really know what we would offer at that point, but.
I feel like there's enough areas that there's more areas than there are funds. I don't think that's really going to be an issue because I feel like we have a lot of areas that would all qualify and that should be the ones we start with anyway.
We could probably spend the entire budget in the very first phase park initiative. So.
Yeah.
You're right.
Throw it out.
I think a quick question, and I understand where Shelley was coming from in regards of who gets left out, who doesn't fit into the mix for that time. How do you guys feel about match grants? How do you feel about matching grants for businesses?
I think match grants are far better than all funded grants. I think that the owners need to have skin in the game. That's the way it was done for decades and decades. I think that was a far better program than what we've morphed it into in the last 5 years.
Is that a feeling, if I can ask, is that a feeling felt by the board?
Are we talking commercial? Or are we talking real?
Well, in some of these regardless, either way.
I don't think so. I think that some of the people, the income they make, some of them don't have the money to do it. They just don't.
So what if it was commercial? You'd
Even
be,
a lot of them on social security, that's all they got. By the
Right.
time they pay their rent, so they are still paying our rent or mortgage and electric and water and put a little bit of grocery in the refrigerator, they don't have it. They just don't have it.
I understand.
And it's not like they don't care, they just don't have it.
I
And they
understand.
don't have the kids to come and pick up to help them out. So no, I don't think so. I think that we should be able to help the fortunate and the unfortunate. Yeah.
How about that? How about that commercial? You're for that if there's the wherewithal?
Well, I look at commercial differently. If you got some type of commercial property, you got some type of income coming in. And you should possibly, I'm not gonna say it should be a 50-50 match, but you should have something to put on the table if you got income coming in every month. I'm talking about a steady income every month, because you got a 12-bedroom rental you got going on here. And you getting something from each one of those units. You should have something to put up.
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
and
you.
it's possible that we could do both. I mean, we could do matching and then have an extenuating circumstances. If they can prove exceptional hardship, then maybe if they're willing to provide that, and let us know the reasons, then maybe that's where that could come into play. But I definitely agree with that. I think matching is going to stretch the dollars further and make more of a difference, in my opinion.
Thanks, Brittany, because I think it helps us all to have an idea where you guys are coming from as well.
I think the level of partners that you're gonna get in that is gonna be far superior. They're gonna be there for the long haul if they have skin in. My 2 cents.
Thank you.
I don't know, some business owners, I just feel like, just because they do have 12 parcels of property, they may be struggling too.
Sure.
Taxes aren't cheap, so I don't know, I feel like they need a little incentive program also.
And I agree with that, because after all, they are paying their taxes like anybody else.
But if they're up to date on their taxes and they're not neglecting their other bills, water bills, utility bills, their other taxes, help them out a little.
If I could speak for the chairman and vice chairman, thank you very much. And Bill, thank you for asking that question earlier.
All right, so back to item number 11. Are we going to table this or are we going to vote on it now? Does the advisory board want to go back and pause this a little bit? Bring it back to us? Are you happy with it?
I do on B13, I have a commercial exterior grant. There may be a way that we can combine the facade block with that. That is up to $50,000 match that could all become one program. If you want to hear that one and then maybe table this one, we can hear that one and then decide if we want it to be
All right.
a combined effort.
We will do just that.
I'll make a motion into, sorry.
Let's hear the 13 and then we'll
Oh, I
decide.
thought we were gonna table it and then discuss it, but that's fine.
We don't necessarily have to table it right now. We can go on and look at 13 and decide. If we want to vote. All right, item number 13.
This is a commercial exterior grant. It's very similar to what we just talked about. When I think facade grant, that's your basic curb appeal type that we're all used to. Painting, awnings, beautification. For something like this, that's to help the larger commercial properties in our CRA districts. And I have a legacy credit available proposed in here, and it's a match reduced by 5% for every years of continuous ownership. I know sometimes CRAs are notorious for helping the new guy in town, but we've left the owners that have invested their time, money, and energy, they kind of get left in the dust. So this is a way to incentivize our older ownership to hopefully participate in these programs. And so for this up to $50,000 match would be more of facade restoration, your larger repairs, architectural enhancements, ADA access improvements, the permanent entry landscaping and planters, roof and porch restorations on these large buildings. They're going to need a lot more than the $15,000. So this was more geared towards that, but we can roll that all into what the facade grant currently is, just for a much larger grant amount. And I think that would take care of this altogether.
And this is obviously a match.
Correct. Commercial only.
Right. Any questions?
Just one quick comment. I would think under the eligible improvements, just make it a requirement that anything from the architectural enhancements down to the permanent entry landscaping and planters, only allow that to be approved if there are other major upgrades. So if they are also repairing or replacing all of their windows and doors, or the facade restoration and material replacement, but if it's part of a major renovation, then improve those smaller things. And then one other thing, just the same requiring reimbursement if I don't want to upgrade their property and then have them turn around and sell it within 30 days and get the money for the property upgrade. So I would want some kind of a repayment if they do that.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, is anyone opposed to those changes that were proposed there? No. Okay. All right, as far as blending these two programs together, item 11 and 13. Your, once again, overview of how you blend them together. The block grant and the commercial grant.
I feel like they could likely just be a facade grant program. And the way we, I guess, structure how we want to target the blocks, whether that be a lottery or a group discussion on maybe advisory makes a recommendation and you follow. It could just be a facade grant program up to $50,000 and then list the eligibility requirements based on the different types of property.
Okay. So hearing those comments, does the advisory board still want to table number 11 and massage it and see how to add it into item number 13?
Yes. I'd like to revisit both of these items.
Okay.
After legislature.
Okay.
We have merit to discuss this whole thing and then do a deep dive into it because you've done a wonderful job bringing title with that. A lot of great ideas. So there's something we need to go back and look at.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. So do we have a motion to postpone indefinitely item number 11?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Last call for questions. Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Board Member McGuire,
Yes.
Board Member Cure,
Yes.
Board Member Talon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, do we have a motion to postpone item number 13?
So move.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. Any questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member McGuire.
Yes.
Board Member Cure.
Yes.
Board Member Talon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, item number 12.
Item number B12, Avon Park Main Street Program. Next slide, please. I believe everybody is familiar with the Main Street organization. This is something that we discussed at the advisory meeting. Currently, there is no Avon Park Main Street program. I did contact the Florida Main Street organization. They said it's a pretty simple process for Avon Park to reinstate our certification with them. It's going to take some paperwork. I did reach out to Cliff Shepherd today and talk to him specifically about a few of these grants. And I did speak with Jessica Newman at the city of Wauchula. She is the Main Street Director and the CRA Director for Wauchula. So this is not uncommon for CRA to also kickstart that program and sometimes they veer off and become their own organization and sometimes it works really well and they stick under one hat. Cliff did say, and I had this proposed under CRA that this is not a CRA initiative. It should come out of general funds. So if the city decides it's something that you want to move forward with, just keep that in mind. Right now, we have a lot of motivation, a lot of enthusiasm around our Main Street businesses. I've had several people come to my office and want to know what can they do? How can they get involved? How do we gather the troops per se and just provide consistent events, whether that's supporting the events that are already doing really well on Main Street and offloading some of these things that we cannot do with CRA that the Main Street organization can do, whether that's a banner program or a planter program, more of those smaller beautification processes that are ideas that don't fall under or CRA that could fall under Main Street. So again, this idea is just for the city to support the potential idea for kicking off that program. And I can initiate that process and get us started, or we can decide to get it started and then have the Main Street develop a board and then they can take it over at that point and decide who their director is going to be. But I do feel like this is necessary for us to build momentum with our businesses in downtown. Whether that's Christmas and fall festivals and things like that, but just making sure that everybody's on page with what we're doing and to build excitement around these grant programs that we're offering.
Jess, this item was brought to, the CRA, I guess a year or so ago. I think it's a great idea. The best thing I like about it is the possibility of getting grants on this program. So I think maybe best possibility might be to have the CRA director to get the program started and then maybe turn it over to somebody who specializes not only in this entire program, but also into grant writing, because as you know, we need, I think in one way or another, one department, city, CRA, whatever, we need either a professional, part-time consultant type grant writer for our city for everything. And I think that this fact that there's a lot of grant money for this program, that I think it's something that we could save some money by having the CRA started off and then turn it over to somebody who could take it over, who's also an expert at writing grants, not only for the Main Street CRA, but for the entire city.
I think if you're using Wachula as an example, I think Jessica, I've met her, I've talked to her about this program before, did a fantastic job. And your discovery to want to do this under the city's guise, under the CRA guys, before handing it off is brilliant. And I think it's a good idea to do that. I also think there's a great potential here to bridge that gap between what we want and what we can do with CRA. I think you even put that in part of your verbiage. So I think that's fantastic. And I can think of 5 to 10 people in this city who have that ability. I'd be very curious to see how that goes. But I think this is a really good bridge. I think that was your point too, right? It's a good bridge between what we want and what we're legally allowed to do, whether it's through Cliff or through Jerry or whatever the stipulation may be. So, and I think if you haven't, take a drive through Wachula and see what Jessica's talking about with the signs, with the other things that there's buy-in, excuse me, buy-in from the complete town on this. So I would recommend, if you haven't taken a trip to Wachula, just take a drive through and you'll see exactly what I think you're after. And I've seen it in 3 towns now. And I think we're well within the guidelines and ability to do this. So if you can't tell, I'm pretty excited about most of this stuff, almost all of it.
Calm down, calm down.
So, but to that point, I think I'll be very open. So the original bringing to it wasn't quite what was going to fit into what we wanted at the time. And there were questions and other things that were available. I'm being very careful with what I say right now. So now that we have the ability to go ahead and have it be under the guise of the city and the CRA with a little bit more direction, with not an individual or that at this point, not saying that wouldn't be able to be hand off, which was your plan. So I think we kind of hit the dirt on this a little bit about 1.5 years ago. I wasn't with the CRA at that point. But I think now we have it more clearly defined what we're after and more clear defined how to get there and more clear defined rules and how it's going to go. So I applaud you, Jessica, on this. And I'll try and contain my enthusiasm, but Mayor, we're on a roll here. So I think we're doing really well.
So how long would you give? What is your, okay, here we go. What is your give time? Like, how long would you expect the CRA to handle that?
I would
Are we
say,
talking a year or 2 years? And
I would think that from what was brought to the CRA 1.5 years ago, it was approximately a year-long process to get it up and running. And I think that with somewhere between 1 and 2 years, that with everything else that Jessica is doing, that she could get it started and with her knowledge and get it set up and running and use city funds or CRA funds to do that. And at that time, I think, and then it'll be maybe open to turn it over to a position to somebody, like I said, that would take it over as a sole job, as well as the fact that the position also would be somebody who could do all the grant writing for the CRA and the city. So I think it's something that I have a lot of faith in Jess. I think that she's got it together. I think everybody has seen what the thing she's capable about. Just not even 2 months time, not even maybe a month. That I know that you could do this, and I know that I think when you're ready to get it up and running and started, and then you're ready to turn it over, then we can look at that, whether it's through the CRA first or through the city first. Then I think that that's capable in a year, 2 years at the most.
So did you say CRA cannot fund it though?
CRA Cliff recommended CRA does not fund it, this used to be the standard structured CRA would fund, but with the changes in CRAs, they have now moved that over to general funds versus CRA.
So is the idea that you would take this over for the first year without it being funded, or the city would need to fund that $45,000?
So we would need a startup fund request. So I have 45,000 requested to kick off what would entail, I mean, we need to establish all the organization documents, getting it started, obviously starting our board. So there is going to be some initial cost there. So I have this year one getting it started. I mean, it's going to take that long to just establish a board and get the program up and running, and then explore grant eligibility and build membership. So it's really a third type organization. 1/3 typically comes from the city funds. 1/3 is membership based or sponsorship based of those supporting that on a volunteer basis. And then the other third is typically events that they're putting on to raise funds. So we would need a startup fund.
Do you know what the financial impact would look like in 2-3 years if it's coming from general fund?
I have no idea.
We can look at that and bring it back.
I would just be interested to see what the long-term, I mean, if it was CRA dollars, it's one thing, but whenever you're talking about using general fund dollars, it's a whole different animal because they're so precious, and they're limited, and they could be drastically limited here if certain legislation goes through. So I would be in favor of postponing this at least until we can figure out what the long-term cost would be to the city directly.
We'll definitely look at that. I mean, there's no point in voting on it since you can't fund it through CRA dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one reason why I say it'd be great if we could do it to the city fund, that would also include somebody with a grant writer.
Okay, any other discussion or questions on item number 12? Seeing none, item number 14.
This is the last proposed grant and maybe the most controversial. I did speak with Cliff about item B14, commercial interior grant today. And this again, so we talked a lot about the outside facades, business incentives, but how can we help these buildings that need much larger renovations? And so this is not uncommon for cities or CRAs to have a program like this. I know Tampa and Sarasota specifically have it, but it's 50,000 for interior construction. Cliff was just very cautious in how we use language. If you decide to move forward with something like this, he basically said the CRA can fund or match, do a match grant if the upgrades are for safety reasons or for code reasons. If it's just some type of repair or improvement on the property, that doesn't necessarily qualify. But if it's something that could harm someone or be a code violation, then that is something that would fall under CRA territory. So basically taking the $50,000 exterior grant, moving that to interior to do more of those large renovations that these old buildings require.
Okay. Is that something that he's still researching, or is that pretty much the final word?
That was his final recommendation. It is eligible. You just have to be very cautious at what you're funding.
Okay. Could we potentially see some examples of
Absolutely.
projects that are being funded that are acceptable in his eyes?
Yeah, the program I mirrored this after was a Tampa CRA, and ironically, he's working on that one right now to change the language to incorporate some of those better vocabulary words. So once he's finalized that, I can bring that back to you guys.
So if we ever had one that came before you that was extremely I wouldn't say controversial, but you just weren't sure, instead of putting it through, you would consult with the attorney to see what his final word is, what his final word would be on it, to proceed or not proceed with it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important, especially if we do move forward with these larger grant matches, that all of those most likely get an approval before I present it to advisory or the board.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, does anyone care to vote on this, or do we want to postpone?
I'll make a motion to postpone B14 indefinitely.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's call for questions.
Yeah, Mayor, I have a question. And the
Go ahead.
reason why we're postponing it is to what? Go back and get information?
There a reason?
I would say to allow that attorney to finish working on Tampa's version so that we can see what they arrive at. Let him vet it for us.
Provide examples.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Will this come before the advisory board? And give you, do we need to research,
I think it would.
or just going straight to the CRA?
It would be my recommendation as part of your motion for it to go to the advisory board.
Yes.
Is part of your second. Agree
Yes.
with that? Okay, then yes. Any other questions?
Yes, Mayor, while we are asking about tabling, all the ones that we tabling, are all of those going through the advisory board before they come back to us? Cause we tabled a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I would assume that was the inference. I know two of them specifically were requested as such besides this one, so.
Okay.
But as a general rule, I think that would be a good idea.
Can I make a comment or more of a question?
Sure.
Can we take, I know we have like 10 minutes. Can we help me understand and define the relationship and what you would like to see out of advisory versus our CRA board and how you want to work together? If you want to be the visionaries that bring ideas and then we're the ones doing the work and how that relationship's going to work moving forward.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote on this and then we'll get to that.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
All right, any last questions on the vote? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Board Member Dwyer,
Yes.
Board Member Chair,
Yes.
Board Member Talbot. Yes. Vice Chair Bernard.
Yes.
Chair Anderson.
Yes. All right. To Jessica's question of how we work with the advisory board. I mean, the way I've always seen it is more or less they are a first line barrier for all intents and purposes, unless it's something that the board strongly disagreed with. We tend to always go with their recommendations. They are more or less a board made up more of, I mean, not that we're not community members, but it's just another community board to give a broader set of ideas. We also try to pick people that are uniquely qualified to handle the type of development projects and whatnot that typically come before them. So now that we're making significant changes, that may change things, but I think this board is more than qualified to make good recommendations, and we typically go with. So that's just my opinion. Anybody else care to elaborate or have a different opinion?
It seems to me that one time you guys were considering doing away with the council being the CRA board and having an independent board.
Right.
But we can't do that because of the way the statute's structured. So I would think that they want as much power on that side, even though they can't make decisions, ultimately they can only make recommendations. But they can make some pretty strong recommendations, is what I've heard in the past.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see you guys go through every single one of the proposals, and if you don't agree with it, tell us you don't agree with it. We don't expect you to look at them and say, yes. I don't anyway, to everything. I would like to hear your opinion, and even the facade grants, if you have a problem with it, or with even how the contractors are chosen, or whatever it is. I would like to hear your guys' opinion on that, on each decision.
Agreed.
I would like to see the board take an item and tear it apart. I go to some of y'all meetings and I would like to see y'all tear it apart. I mean, take it into pieces and put it back together. And if you still didn't come up with a decision, when it comes to us, tell us, okay, we tore it apart, we didn't agree. Now we want y'all to look at it. I think that by the time it gets to us, only thing we should say yes or no. We shouldn't have to go back and reevaluate, look at what you did and what you didn't do. I think, me personally, I think that's what you should be doing. Tearing apart, breaking it into pieces, putting it back together, and before you move on and say, this is what we decided. Now, there gonna be some times you're not gonna be able to decide, you're gonna have to table it. But I do believe that when it comes to us, it should be so in order that we should say, okay, job well done. Yes, no. And I find that we don't always do that. And sometimes we got to go back and pick it apart. That's just my personal.
I have to agree. But I
Yeah.
also like this. I like this type of meeting where we get to listen to you face to face rather than all of us having to go to your meeting or all of you having to come to our meeting. We need to have more of this back and forth at a meeting at least once a month or twice, once every couple of months.
I think it's our responsibility to keep this energy, what you just said, Shelley, and we just said, Bernice, to keep this energy going. I can tell you, there hasn't been a lot to tear apart in the last few months, to be quite honest. And this isn't a way to go Jessica party or Danielle, but there hasn't been a lot to tear apart, but we've also done our due diligence. I mean, we're not making quick decisions at all, but we've been pretty thorough. I welcome what you guys just said, and I'm speaking for myself alone. I am a junior member compared to these other 4 people. But I can tell you, but I can tell you the energy feels good in this room today, and there's been a lot of open conversation, and I love it.
Well, I know one thing, as the liaison to this advisory board for a couple of years now, maybe 3 years. I think we got the best group of people we can have up there right now, and you're all professional people. You all actually express your opinions and minds and come to conclusions. And I think that you guys have come a long, long way in helping the city. And I think in most cases, most everything you do bring to us is basically, yes, great job. And I think the fact that you guys have questioning things and come up to them, I give you all the compliments in the world. You guys are doing a great job. I say continue doing what you're doing. And I believe that most things that you're going to bring to us, we're going to be happy with.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to compliment staff
Right.
because without them, we don't have the information to make a valued decision. And these guys are killing it. Getting us the information, they have the answers to our questions, and that's what makes it work. You know, and if we can take that load off of you to where we've already gone through all that, it sure makes it easy when you have a team like we have with the city to rely on to give us the information to make valued decisions. You know, it's heartwarming that so many people are interested in this city, including staff.
We're in a good place now.
We compliment you on taking the direction of hiring a director. The narrative tonight was visionary. You use the word. We've just reacted to what came to us as an advisory board. For the 3 years I've had the privilege of just reacting to what was put in front of us. If you're actually applauding just because efforts of looking at what doesn't come before us, but what we could bring to the board. That was what I was hoping to hear. If you really want us to go out and think of ideas of how to be frugal with these dollars, if they exist. That was just, I think some of us wanted to hear that or understand it.
Yeah. Well, to be clear, I certainly do.
There are dollars that exist right now. We're out of time. I hope they can make next agenda, but there are dollars that are just sitting dormant.
Let's spend it.
West of town. And we don't know what to do. We don't know to be visionaries based on the airport dollar or to sit tight. We don't know the direction. Just as an example, this has been very helpful to your point. To get together as all we can, all this is appropriate.
Very good. Anything else on this?
I would like to also thank the audience for coming, because when we have joint sessions like this, not only we get the advice, the concepts and the vision of just us as a board or advisory board council, we also get the help and assistance from the audience who represents the public. And it's going to take that same type of effort. We only talking about Main Street right now, but we get to the south side, we're going to need that same type of help and assistance, because we're talking about a vision. And we talk about some of the, activity, whether it be crime or negative activity on the south side. If we don't have a vision It's a word saying without a vision, we will perish. And I think that's what we're seeing on the south side. There's no vision. So we get the help of the community. We want y'all to come and say, this is what we would like to have for the south side. And I don't care if it takes another committee, y'all get a concerned citizen committee, a group of 5 or 10, 15 people, and say, these are some of the things that we want to see change on the south side. Bring it to us, and then we as a collective family, but this is like a reunion, we can get some things done on the south side. And then that will bridge the gap between the south side and the Main Street. Because people are saying they're doing stuff for Main Street, but they're not doing something for the south side. But we come together as a family, then we can say, oh, it feels safe to come to the south side because we having activities down on the south side, whether it be festivals, whether it be presentations. Somebody just had couple proclamations. We can have presentations in the community on the south side, say this would happen at this meeting. Y'all wasn't there, but we bringing it to the south side. So keep coming because it helps. Thank you.
Yes, sir. That's my buddy there.
Very good meeting. I've been around a decade or so with CRA. Really enjoyed it tonight. I just got one phrase. Spend the money. It's not a golden egg. It's not gonna happen.
And on that note, that concludes our agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the CRA? All right. We'll be entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.